Hello and welcome to the Cardiff Central podcast. I'm Harley as ever. I'm joined by both boys, Dan and Garwin. How are we doing today, gents?
All good.
Good, thanks. Good, thanks, Harley.
Excellent stuff. So bit of a weird one to do a pod when there's not been a Cardiff game. There's not going to be another Cardiff game, but we'll get on to why we've chosen to do a pod a bit later on. So we are getting into the throngs of the autumn international, boys. Are we excited for this? Are we just like, can we just get back to Cardiff playing, or where are we feeling in the lie of the land?
They had this discussion on the BBC's Rugby Union Weekly pod, and they're saying that, like, yeah, there is way too much international rugby, but also I'm quite looking forward to it all as well at the same time. Like there's some really good games. Like England New Zealand was a great game on Saturday to get it started, and there's some really good games over the next few weeks. And I think even some of the games Wales are involved in, like, I'm always excited to see Fiji play, and I think Wales Australia will be quite a decent battle. So I'm relatively excited, and then we can get back into proper rugby at the end of the month.
Yeah, I missed New Zealand England because I was at Hartbury Gloucester, which was one hell of a game, by the way. But Gloucester won, for anyone wondering. But yeah, I think I was very excited about 2 weeks ago, and it's sort of mellowed slightly through certain things coming out. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Wales, Fiji, Wales, Australia. I think they could be good games. Likewise, I do expect Ireland to put New Zealand to the sword, if I'm completely honest, this weekend. I don't actually expect that to be very two-sided. I think that could be very one-sided. And then seeing how South Africa against sort of the bigger countries, no disrespect to Scotland there, but that was intended jibe. But we'll see how they fare. I think it could be a very good autumn. I think rugby needs it to be a good autumn as well, a little bit. And see how these new laws come in. I'm not convinced by some of them, the 20-minute red card, but we'll see how they go.
No, this could be a full episode ranted by me alone on my opinions on 20-minute red cards.
Yeah, the other one I don't get is marking from a kickoff.
That just genuinely ruined so much of the under-20s World Cup, and effectively all that happened was the other team got a line out, still got a line out about where they would have had one anyway.
It's a waste of time. Anyway, that's my opinion. I don't think it's going to work. I think the idea is to force teams to kick between the 22 and 10, but I don't think they're going to. So that's that, really.
Well, it's not like you can do a funny thing like South Africa and call the scrum off the mark now anyway, so...
Yeah.
So it's not like you can use it as a way to get a penalty and change possession. At the end of the day, you're still kicking it away. I mean, right, you might be able to run, but if you know that the other team's going to mark it and then try and run, you're set. Because you can set your kickoff line.
No idea.
Just quickly, any thoughts on the weird laws, Dan?
No, I roughly agree with those ones. I think 20-minute red card's awful. I think the kickoff one, if teams are clever about it, they could use it to their advantage. You know, if Wales are quite smart and you kick to compete and you get Grady coming after it and trying to slap the ball back, like they could actually use that to our own advantage. But I do think some of them are, like the one stop maul is really good. I think that's a good one. And so there's the occasional, was it a broken clock works twice a day? They chuck a good one out there occasionally.
Are there any laws you'd like to see come back? Because I'd like to see, the one where if you put 1 foot out of touch as the ball's rolling across the ground and picked it up, then it's considered to be in touch. I'd like to see that come back. I quite like that. Or catching it and with 1 foot in touch and it's considered straight out or something. Because I thought that was quite clever play, but yeah.
I genuinely don't know what the touch law is now, though, because it's changed quite a lot now in terms of the one Werner Koch kept in against us against Ulster the other day. Like, I thought that was classed as in touch now because he landed in touch, but because he jumped from the field of play, it's okay or something. I have very little idea of what counts as in touch and what doesn't now.
Honestly, I did a course, and that was, I promise you, about half an hour's worth of conversation of a day-long course.
We just need Hawkeye in, and then if Hawkeye says it's gone past the line, that's it. It's a touch. Just be simple with it.
I
and
think
obviously the
needs
weird variation for hookers, where as long as they are, because as long as they've got contact with the white line, they're in touch because they're technically in touch because anything in the white line is in touch. I mean, the easiest way to get around to that is say touch is outside the white line, and then if you just graze the white line, then you're still in.
I think the touch law should go back to be what it was so if you start off on the field of play and take it back in, you're fine. But if you start off the field of play, you're off the field of play, you're in touch. So once you touch the ball from that position, it's irrelevant. You've been in touch. You are in touch. So that's my 2 pence. But
speaking of new one thing, so with interpretations and you know, I was thinking it's the kicking. So one thing I thought was really, really nice to see in the Scotland Fiji game was just the amount of saying we want to see an access and we want to actually, you know, they're actually trying to stop these blocking lines as much. So you're actually getting genuine competition for the ball. So that should be quite good, particularly for some teams where kick to compete is a large part of what they do.
So what Ireland do now? Ireland have got the best trench in the world going backwards whenever when the kit to compete's going on. So it'd be interesting how they fare with the blocking lines.
Yeah, absolutely. I said any other chat on law variations? And if I wanted to bring in a law, I think we all know which law this pod wants to bring in. Any attempted drop goal is in a penalty advantage is instant yellow card. And we will stick with this one.
100%.
There was one of them in England, New Zealand. Mark Smith played one on penalty advantage.
Yeah. He should have got a red card because he missed. It should be worse if you miss. I mean, if it's only 20 minutes, it doesn't matter, does it?
I'd somewhat argue, actually, it's worse if you get it. Sorry, I'm going back to this, right? Get it, then what was the point? If you miss, it's a bit like, oh, well, what was the point trying to drop goal anyway? You should have gone for something else. Like,
it was a super...
If you get it, at least you've got your own pride of, I nailed a drop goal. Like, I don't know.
It was a super embarrassing miss, is what I'd add, though. Like, he proper fluffs it. It's not like it just slid wide. It was like, I don't think it got above the height of the crossbar at any point on this journey.
Instant substitution / 20-minute red card.
I know we're ostensibly a Cardiff rugby pod, but I do want to have one more thought I had during that game was whilst England, I thought there was a slight chance England were going to win. How long is it going to take for Sanzar to campaign for the penalty goals to be dropped down to 1 point?
What I did like though on Saturday, linking it into ref chat, was Gardner. His microphone was on, so people in whatever Twickenham's called now could actually hear what he was talking about. So it was, and it sort of it got quite good when he was sort of hyping the crowd up a bit when New Zealand had scored, but it was an obvious knock on. So he comes back and announces the deliberate knock on, and England celebrate it as if it's a try. But it's sort of like Nigel Owens is probably coming back out of retirement now because he's going to love all this. Like, right, guys, I've got a decision, and then starts like a ooh, and I slow hand clap as he announces his decision. It's a knock on, and everyone cheers.
Yeah, it's something they've been doing in the Southern Hemisphere for years, and it is something I've always said I think really needs to come in because the ref mics are crap, and sometimes you can't even get the channel. But actually, just having it in the stadium and channel, most of these big stadia have the equipment to do it anyway. So why not? I can't imagine it's that difficult. You've been more behind the scenes than us, but.
Yeah, I can only assume the only thing that's been halting it is the fear of profanity. But like at the end of the day, I just think it should have been brought in a while ago. Football have been crying out for it for VAR. But it's hard to take Atticus Gardner seriously after there was that video of him showing how he does his his mock games that he does, where he plans out whole games, talking to two front rows, going keep it up, and there's no one on the pitch. He looks like some random bloke with a dog. I think he's a decent ref, but I can't take him seriously ever since that moment. That clip, if you played that clip in front of a team before the game, no one would listen to it. Everyone would just think it's some man in the field with a dog. But yeah.
I mean, you're right. He's brilliant, and he ref that game brilliantly. But he always gives me the vibe of a child who's lost their parents in a supermarket.
Yeah.
And it's just in my head. It's like, do you need me to find you a grown up?
The best one of that is refereeing TJ Perinara. I can't remember the game. It was Hurricanes against someone. And TJ's about to take a quick tap. And he takes a quick tap but forgets to tap the ball or something. And then TJ scores. Angus brings it back. He's like, sorry, mate. We just reviewed it on the TMO. It's not a try because you didn't tap the ball. And TJ goes, well, if I didn't tap the ball, it's still my penalty, no? And he's going, yeah, you're right. Just give TJ the whistle. Like, just hand it over to a responsible adult at this point.
Whilst we're going on ref chat, can I just say Craig Evans was absolutely perfect for the whole. I know a lot of people are saying he was, a bit unfair on Fiji, but I don't think he was. I think he got every decision right, near enough, and just good to see him refereeing top international games as a Welshman. Even if he did let the bloody Turks win. He supposedly hates the Turks, according to all the Scots fans, but still let them win. So anyway, shall we move on to actual Team Wales against Fiji? Before we go into preview game, which Cardiff players, and the current Cardiff players, not the former ones or the ex-academy ones, which we could all bring it, we're definitely going to claim it whenever the team squad gets announced. Who do you think has a genuine shot of making the starting 15 and the 23?
I reckon.
Sorry, go on, Dan.
No, you go.
I was going to say I've only got 3 or 4 guaranteed starters in the whole 50 personally, and I think one of them is Cam. And I think one of them is Thomas. One of them is Derry Lake. Rio Dyer is highly probable. And then I'm struggling after that, I've got to be honest, to pick definites.
I had to get the Dragons player mentioned in there. I wonder why. Also, I love how you don't say Aaron Wainwright as a definite. He's definitely in.
Well, fitness-wise, I suppose you don't know what's happening with Wainwright. Yeah, like if he's fit, he's definitely in. And you assume that he is having played for the Dragons. But I don't suppose you can. That's one of those ones without being in camp, you can never definitely say. I think I'd probably add Grady to the definites, but I think probably the question would be where he plays rather than if he plays or not. I think I'd struggle to see a scenario where Gatland doesn't pick Grady in the starting 15 unless he's had a sort of like world-class level stinker over the last 2 weeks in training or something. But I just think whether 13 wing or still possibly a 12, knowing Gatland, I think he's probably in. And then I feel like you can add, I don't know, Plumtree's probably up there as an almost certain as well. Like if Wainwright's not in, definitely Plumtree. And then if Wainwright is in, then almost certainly Plumtree at 6, I'd think. But yeah, from a Cardiff perspective, I think Winnett's 100% like nailed down where in 15. I think you've been doing press this week and stuff as well. Like it's difficult to see a scenario where he's not the 15. And then Grady is an almost certain. And then you've got probably, I think, Azza and Ben Thomas are definites for I'd say definites for the 23, maybe, I don't know about definites, but almost certains for the 23. Like Azza you're looking like Henry Thomas is probably the favourite to start, and then I think Griffin went well in the summer for Wales, definitely, but is obviously, I think he's played like 50 odd minutes for Bath. 20 odd of those were last weekend against Amptill, who they absolutely battered. I think they kept them to 0. And he's had 2 or 3 weeks of no play at all, no training or anything, because he had a sort of like heart flare up or something. So I think you assume that Henry Thomas starts, Azza on the bench then as your replacement. And then Ben Thomas, does he start at 12? Does he start at 10? if he doesn't, he's almost certainly on the bench just because of his positional flexibility. Then covering 10, covering 12, covering fullback. But that I think the other one then is Botham is a possible, as probably the bench back row option. I think. But Teddy, I think it would be a big surprise to see Teddy Williams involved. And then Evan Lloyd, I think, is probably an uphill battle with Derry Lake, obviously a certainty to start. And then you think it's probably Elias on the bench then.
Just word on Nazarath, he was up for written press today.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which, well, yeah, is a bit of a surprise, if I'm completely honest. If I was to list, as I said, definite players, he wouldn't have come into the list. So, yeah, granted, written press is a bit more, not as straightforward as broadcast press, where if you're up for broadcast press, you're almost guaranteed to be a part of the team. If you're up for written press, it's a bit more featurey, talking about your life, that sort of thing. So it's less certain, but be interesting to see what happens with him.
Yeah, so I mean, I think for me, if you've got Ben Thomas, Ben Thomas doesn't start at 12, he's in that 22, and you're probably looking at the expense of Costello. Like, I think Gatland will back Anscombe, and then he'll use Ben Thomas as the 10 cover.
I think Costello's third choice in my depth chart for 10, definitely. I think he's there for if Anscombe breaks down at any point, essentially.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, as much as I think Costello's probably the better all-round, 10 on virtue of playing 10, I think it'd be a situation of it'd be Anscombe or Costello with your two starting 10s, and then Ben Thomas is that cover off the bench. I think, so we were discussing this on the wrap, I think both of them's going to be the number 20 jersey just because of the versatility. And I think Gatland said he doesn't want to have Jack and Reffel playing together. It's going to be one or the other. And I think what you'll see is only one of them will be in the match day 23, even if he's rotating around. That's not shot on Tommy Reffel. It's just that for me, Jack Morgan's going to start. I think if he's fit, he starts because we've missed a lot of his all-round game. Although he might not be the same breakdown threat as Reffel, and same as both of them. Both of those players, they're carrying games a lot stronger. They're the actual tackling and defense is quite good. It does leave us without a solid jackal threat, but when you've got a team like Fiji, they're going for offloads anyway, so you just want people who can hit them back. The ball's not going to be in the ruck long enough for you to try and pinch it.
They could, because I think Gareth Thomas has been really good for Wales at loosehead. Like, he's been the first choice for like 2.5 years now or so, really quietly, without anyone really noticing that he's become so crucial. But they could Nicky Smith from the start, who could be a jackal threat a bit more then as well, go alongside Jack Morgan and then bring Thomas off the bench, just to sort of mix up how many players with the surname Thomas there are in the side, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not like Jack not the jackal threat as well. Like, he was top turnover in the URC. I know
I'm not saying I'm saying he's not.
No. He's not Tommy. No one, but
Tommy Raffel's like a 10 out of 10 for Jackals. Jack Morgan is like an 8, and I'd say both of them's probably better. And I think with those two as well, they're quite good at doing the tackle, then getting over the ball as well. Whereas I think Tommy Reffel, he needs someone to mow someone down to get over.
Is there anyone in World Rugby now who's close, as in a 7 out of 7 is close to probably Bottier actually? Actually, thinking about it, who's close to Tommy, but bar that as an out-and-out jackal threat. Fraser McBride's pretty good as well for Australia, but I'm trying to think of another one that's an out-and-out jackal threat to the centre. Tommy, the interesting one you said is Grady, because I'm getting more and more the feeling that he's going to play wing. Spoke to Hathaway on the weekend because he was playing for Gloucester against Hartpury, and I just said, how's competition going in camp, sort of thing, and he sort of said, there's lots of competition with the likes of Rico, Cam, Grady. And so Grady's playing on the wing then, is he? Or sort of half joking. He's like, well, he's trying a bit of everywhere, but I still got the vibe that it's sort of wing that they're looking at him from. If I'm reading between the lines, watch this. He played 12, like absolute nonsense. But it's just a slight feeling I'm getting. I I would be very surprised if we don't see Blair Murray at some stage during this autumn. I really do think he's going to play. So I've almost thought he's going to be in this match day 23. I'm that makes me wonder if Grady is a definite to start. I think he's a definite for the 23. I'd be, it's just so impossible not to have him as part of the 23 because of whether it be logistically you needing him on the bench to cover two positions, or whether it's just practically he is Wales's best athlete at the moment. I'm not totally sold on him being a definite to start. But we'll see. I really don't know. I don't know anything that's happened between 12 and 14. There's a few murmurings in and around camp about players being fit or not available / things, but I suspect it'll be somewhere Ben, Eddie, Max Llewellyn, Grady, and then the question of Blair Murray or Gareth Anson, with sort of those 6 into those 10 to 14, those 4 positions. That's how I see it, really.
But Murray's an interesting one, I think, because obviously he hasn't been here long and he hasn't played top level rugby wrong, but he's looked very, very good for the Scarlets. He says he wants to play fullback more. He's played 10 a bit, been mostly playing off the wing this season. But it'd be interesting to see what type of winger Gatland sees him as, because I think just sort of like straight up looking at him off the bat, you think he's going up against Rio Dyer on the left wing there, as the kind of smaller, quicker, nippier guy. But Gatland obviously likes Dyer, and Dyer hasn't. He's always like solid for Wales. He'll kick out, like chase everything, like work really hard. I think over the summer he looked probably the best he's looked for Wales in terms of coming off his wing and linking play in midfield and that sort of thing. But he's not. He's in a team which he struggles to like get him the ball a lot. So he's not. He's not the top level finisher that like a Josh Adams is. His try scoring record isn't top. So I think there's a little bit of pressure on him with Murray coming in, and Dyer needs to perform. But also equally, Gatland could use Murray off the right wing, and although he's not the big physical guy, he could use him how he always tried to use Johnny McNichol, as that sort of floating playmaker, pop up off 10, off 12, and get him to link play a bit more. And then you can use Cam maybe slightly wider then from full back, and you can nudge whether it's Max or Grady at 13 and nudge them a bit wider as well, and use Murray to link the play a bit more. So yeah, it would be interesting. Like, I think having Murray and Dyer on your wings is a slight risk defensively in terms of they're both quite short, and teams could target that, with Winnett also being a particularly short fullback. No matter how good they are in the air, ultimately, if you're sending like Damien Penaud at 6 foot plus up, but he's probably going to beat you in the air. So, but yeah, it will be interesting balance. Well, yeah, it doesn't. But looking in the distance of France, it will be interesting to see what sort of balance that Gatland wants in his back three over the next 3 weeks, and then into Six Nations, where he presumably survives until no matter what happens.
I do like Blair. I spoke to someone about it, and he said, "Oh, I don't get it at all." And I was like, "Oh, he's very good in the air." He said his work on his defence, which has been one of the most impressive parts of his game, as far as I've seen.
Yeah,
his finish tries quite well. I think his finish against Sharks was particularly pretty good. I think it only didn't get any credit because of Tom Rogers' finish was so good.
Yeah.
I think he's been very good. I think, I do agree with what you're saying about it most likely being a challenge to Rio, and I think Rio himself would say it's not been as straightforward a start of the season as perhaps he's had previously. But I do think he's always turned up for Wales and always played well for Wales. So I think he's got enough credit in the back to start. I would have thought so. And then, you are looking at most likely a Grady, especially you use the word floating playmaker. And floating playmaker in Gatland, to me, just seems to be a bit of a juxtaposition there. Two phrases don't go together. I don't think we've had a floating playmaker under Gatland since Shane Williams, but the idea of that, I do like the idea. I just don't know if it'll happen. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, personally, for me, when we're talking about it, I don't know, and it's a bit boring because I think a lot of other people have seen it as well. But for me, I see Blair Murray as that bench option. He just covers the back three, and whether it's that Grady moves in off the right wing into 13 and he slots in there, or he subs for Cam, or he sub for Rio. I can see that sort of, particularly for a first cap. First cap, Fiji is probably one of the most difficult defensive things. Not because you genuinely, even the Fijian players don't always know what they're doing. And I feel like, as good as his defense has been, maybe throwing him straight in isn't necessarily the best idea. Do we just sort of try and nail some names down and see who we think? Well, do we want to do who we think or who we want to see? First of all, for a team. Because they can be two different team sheets.
So I have quite like of people I tend to do this with. I have normally a better track record than other people of working out what Gatland's going to do. For instance, we did on the Welsh pod the squad, and I think I won that. And a few things I've done in the past. I've never known if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I've always thought it's probably just a reflection of looking at the type of players he likes. I think as we're so close, probably what we think, and then say who we'd like to alongside it. Maybe if there's anyone got particularly strong, I'd like to see this guy, but I don't see it happening. Yeah, because there's a couple of those, but I don't think there's that many.
Worst comes to worst, see if we can do a 15v15 and see who the public think would win. Right, well, we'll start off. We'll start off with the back three. I think it's the one we've probably spent a fair bit. So I think we're all agreed win it for both our preferred and for the starting. Then the two wings. Personally, for me, I'm thinking Dyer and Grady. But I'm willing to be overruled, and that's also probably the wings I want to see as well.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'd like to see Blair Murray at some point, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah, well, I said for me, but again, we're looking at him and the thing. Right, our centre combo, which is probably the most interesting decision, I think, for both what we want to see and what Gatland will pick, because it will say an awful lot. So, obviously,
how much
now? So, just quickly go through the options. We've got as 12 options. We've got Matt Llewellyn, we've got Ben Thomas, we've got Eddie James, we've got Nick Tompkins, we've got Owen Watkin. As 13 options, we've got Nick Tompkins, Max Llewellyn, Owen Watkin. And heck, you can put Eddie James, might as well put Eddie James and Ben Thomas and that. So we've basically got 5 centres now because we've put Grady, we're putting Grady on the right wing. We've got 2 from 5.
So I did the team that I would like to pick early in the week, and my preferred centre partnership was James and Llewellyn at 12 and 13, which it was tough to write because I love Ben Thomas, obviously. But I just think that Wales just need more carrying punch at 12, generally, and I think Ben is a much improved carrier, but the way he does it at Cardiff for me is that he has a bit of time on the ball and he can use his footwork and hit a weak shoulder and sort of punch a gap. And I just think generally in most games, behind Wales's pack and with the extra speed and intensity of international rugby, I don't think he'll get the time to properly use his footwork before flying into contact. So I think Eddie James is slightly weaker distribution and kicking, but it's still good enough. And then he's a stronger carrier, just sort of straight up physical big bloke. Just gives him the nudge there. And I just think Max is the best option left at 13 if you're not picking Grady, really. I don't enjoy Owen Watkin as a test level 13. I don't think he's particularly quick enough, and I don't think he's actually playing particularly well for the Ospreys this year. I think he's slightly lucky to be in the squad altogether. I don't similar things around Tompkins. I don't think he's a test level 13 either, and he's not really playing at 13 too much for Saracens these days either. And then Max, there is, there's still a question mark about pace there a little bit. He's not an out and out 13, but I think he is he'll be positionally good enough, and that with Dyer and Grady there to cover some of the space, they can be a bit narrower before drifting wide, but quick enough to cover that the wide flank. I think Max's strike running is would be particularly good from that 13 channel. But what do I think Gatland will do? That's really tough to call. That is because I could foresee him picking Watkins still at 13.
I don't see it. I don't see the Watkin pick. I must be honest. I do, although if you are going to pick Watkin and Tompkins, I think of all the games, this one probably stands out as the obvious, where you're thinking go with tried and trusted against probably the strongest threat Fiji have got in the centres, because that's going to be whoever plays in the centres is going to be a blinking good threat. Probably Tuisova and Redrada, I think, isn't it? So that's not a bad
Nice
appearance.
Yeah. No, Sileva as well. Like former captain. Well, I don't know if he's still captain, or if they pick someone who's based in the Drua.
So that's going to be a huge threat. So, but I think the Eddie talk is interesting, because I've heard more and more that he's got a huge boot. I think that's something that could be used more. Personally, the ball carrying thing is I really like Eddie James. Thought he was superb against Zebra. If there's anything that could improve him, it's his ball carrying. He's a big man, but probably doesn't. They always used to say about Josh that he used to carry his weight. So I don't think he carries his weight yet. I think he's almost a converse development to someone like Bundyaki, who has learned to use his hands and learned to distribute, whereas Eddie's got that skill but needs to learn to just run into brick walls a little bit more, or a bit smarter than that maybe, but you know what I mean. But I think the scary option might be the smart option in going with Eddie and Llewellyn. Scary in the sense of it's two inexperienced lads going together, but I do think it'll be interesting. The big obviously talking point is, where does Ben Thomas play? And when Gatlin came out with he's the best back in Wales, it's how much credence do you put into the in Wales caveat at the end of it? Does he start at 10 ahead of Anscombe? Does he start at 12 ahead of Eddie James? Or is it, I see him as a 10, so I'm going to put him on the bench because I think Anscombe's a better player than him. But I'm going to call him the best back in Wales. It's all mind games, isn't it, at the end of the day? And I don't know. I don't know what happens with Ben. I'd be surprised if I saw Ben line up at 12, though. I kind of agree with Dan that the expectation is Gatlin wants to see more punch from Wales at 12, and I think he'll see a bigger lad in Eddie James and or Max Llewellyn / Grady to offer that.
Fair enough. So what do we reckon? We're going to say Gatlin's going to bite the bullet and go for Llewellyn, or do you think he's going to play with go for a safety blanket in Owen Watkin?
I'm happy to go with Llewellyn as well, and I just hope within that then that he does allow particularly Eddie to play a bit as well. He doesn't just ask him to carry it up every time. Like because there's the sort of nightmare scenario there where he names the team and you think, oh, that's quite an exciting sort of midfield and back three. And then the stats come out and Eddie James has passed the ball once and it's probably just a tip onto Max Llewellyn or something like that for the entire game. So like
no Eddie James, those tip-ons, that would be a line break guaranteed.
But yeah, I hope that if that is the way that he goes, then yeah, that Eddie and whoever the 10 is and Cam at fullback are given the chance to properly sort of move the ball when it's on and not just tunnel vision.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll go with those. And then half backs. So everyone's calling for Thomas and Anscombe to carry on their Gloucester partnership. Any calls for swap anyone in? Swapping Ben Thomas or Sam Costello? Or do you think Roger Williams deserves his Wales start?
That's definitely Thomas at 9. Like, if it's not Thomas at 9, then I'll ring up Fiji and tell them the game's cancelled. like he's definitely him. But I think he'll be Anscombe. But like it wouldn't be a surprise if he went Thomas to start necessarily and left Anscombe on the bench for now. But I think if I had a tenner to bet, I'd put it on Anscombe, but with a oh, I'm going to regret this probably, than like putting it on him.
Yes, I'd probably put a tenner on both because you probably even get higher odds on Ben, so you're probably going to get your money back. I don't know. I think it's going to be Anscombe, but I don't know for certain. To be fair, if you'd have asked me a month ago, I'd have said it's definitely going to be Ben Thomas. If you'd have asked me 2 weeks ago, I'd have probably said it's definitely going to be Ben Thomas. But I think the more time has passed, the more I've come to it's probably going to be Anscombe. I'm not convinced either way, but I do think it's probably going to be Anscombe.
I think what just swung it for me was that he kicked in his last game for Gloucester. I think if he hadn't done that, you'd be like, no, it's definitely going to be Thomas, and then Anscombe on the bench. And when the time comes, they'll switch Ben into 12 so that he can stay on the pitch. But now that he's had a game of goal kicking and looked pretty decent off the tee as well, to be fair, considering he hasn't kicked much, I think I'm slightly more towards Anscombe, and that they'll ask him to do the kicking from the start as well.
And are we sticking with those halfbacks for who we'd like to see?
Uh,
Because at this rate, it's getting a very boring team. It's going to be the same 23 players.
I don't know, with a bit of pressure off and a bit more fun, yeah, you could go for Ben. I think like as you'd like to see potentially. Like the beauty of those two is that there's not a bad option there. Both really good players, and
I mean, you've also got Costello to be fair as well. Although
Yeah.
he's showing that he's fantastic off the bench.
I agree with what you said earlier. Like Costello's a good player, but he's just, I don't know, he's so far off it confidence wise at the moment. He just doesn't look like he even believes in himself. So no, I think we could whack 10 in the Ben, a 10 in the one we'd like to see, and Anscombe what we think.
But you're looking forward to Ben 10, are you?
Yeah, bringing it back.
If only just to give Ben the sort of continuity of a good performance over the summer, just to say to him, look, you played really well over the summer, you deserve to keep your shirt. So yeah, that's probably the only.
I mean, if we're going for that, then is there an argument for Bevan to start with Thomas off the bench for good performances during the summer?
No,
it's just Thomas, isn't it? It just is Thomas.
Yeah,
no disrespect to that,
especially now Carrador's gone. Like Thomas is clearly first choice.
He's worth the mission fee by himself, Thomas, really.
Yeah, let's hope he's allowed to do sort of the some stuff he's doing. Right, moving on to the sort of the pretty boys at the back.
A quick one. Have you seen TNT? They're doing an analysis of the autumn teams, and Brian O'Driscoll turns to Jim Roberts and says, "Oh, you know, just a bit on Ben Thomas being the best back in Wales." First thing, Jim Roberts goes, "Well, he's good, but I'd say Thomas Williams is the best back in Wales." It's like you haven't answered the question. You just straight away gone, "Thomas is better, though." Like Thomas Williams. Hold on. There's levels to this game, sort of thing.
Anyway, moving on to the front row. So I think it's going to be fairly obvious. I think it's fairly easy. I think Gatland's definitely going to go Gareth Thomas, Henry Thomas with Dewi Lake in the middle. Any arguments for that? Or do you think like he's brought Nicky Smith in so therefore if he's calling Nicky Smith in, he's going to start? Or is it time for Kemsley Mathias to show off what he can do after what's been a decent start to the season?
I wouldn't be surprised if each loosehead starts a game. I wouldn't be stunned if that, and like if I was to pick a game for Nicky Smith to start, it'd be South Africa. So just a small point on that he may be a good scrummager. I think tight end Henry Thomas has been such a good form. It pains me not to say Archie Griffin, but when, you know, as Dan said, he's played 50 minutes of rugby and 24 minutes of that was the first game of the season, and 24 minutes of that was the last game so far this season. It's a bit difficult to justify a starting berth, but he wasn't playing much rugby before last summer either. So there's two ways to look at it. I thought he was brilliant in the summer, but then likewise, I think Henry Thomas has been one of, if not the certainly the signing, I think, for the Scarlet so far. I think one of the signs in Welsh rugby because of the form he's shown and how he's improved that scrummage. So yeah, I'd put him up there. I think Henry starts probably. Dewi definitely starts, and yeah, as Dan said, Gareth Thomas has been a starting loosehead for 2.5 years, and it would be a bit of a surprise if Gatland went, hold on, this guy I haven't been picking in the squad for 2 years I'm going to put him straight into the starting lineup. I'd be surprised at that. So yeah, that's the expectation, I think.
Ben, do
Yeah,
you agree, disagree?
Yeah, I agree with that fully. I think the point I made on Henry Thomas a bit further as well is that if he's going to be involved in the 23, like I just don't think he's an impact sub. I don't really think he offers much, like coming on with 20 to go, and he's not flying around the field for 20 minutes necessarily in the same way that an Azza or a Griffin would. He's definitely bottom of that rung. So yeah, I Loosehead's actually really good for us at the moment. I think we've got some really good options there. You know, if with Doma can't even get in the squad at the moment, so there's some good depth. And Matthias has been very good for the Scarlets in the first couple of games of the season as well. He's finally sort of growing into his propping ability. As you know, we do have a habit in Wales of writing props who come into the squad at sort of 22, 23 off without sort of remembering that it takes until 25, 26 to really mature as a prop. So yeah, I'd be happy with any of them, but I just think, yeah, Gareth Thomas is in the same way sort of Dyer has mentioned earlier, he's got that credit in the bank and he deserves to keep it. And I thought against Edinburgh, where the Ospreys played them at Bridgend, I thought he was actually very good in that game as well. Particularly with his carrying, which I'd like to see him do a bit more of for Wales. I'd like to see him being given a chance to get the ball in his hands a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's any changes for the team we'd make as is. I think we're all quite happy on that. I think we're all with Gatman on that as a front.
I can say there's a Griffin smile, I reckon.
Do you want Archie Griffin in?
If it was up to me, I think the way Griffin played in the summer, I'd like to see him, and I'd like to see Nicky Smith. But I've been banging that drum for about 4 years, so I don't know how long.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
We need to have some different names in the side, so we'll check Smith and Griffin in. Got me to throw Evan Lloyd in there as well, just for the loss.
I'm not sure Evan Lloyd would pick Evan Lloyd in there, to be honest, at the moment.
I think second row, no debate really, is it? Beard and Rowlands. Oh yes, I've got a great. In terms of what Gatton's going to pick,
it's an interesting one, second row, because he has used Rowlands off the bench quite a lot recently, particularly Six Nations. He sort of took up that 19 jersey a bit.
That was when Dav Jenkins was captain.
Yeah, it was, and but I mean, Rowlands did a decent job actually coming on those last 20 minutes and carrying quite a bit. So there's an argument to be made of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I bet the question a little bit is, does he want Shunza to start or not? I think is maybe the major question around that, because there's the other element of getting Freddie Thomas capped at some point as well. But yeah, it's an interesting one, second row, because Beard now it seems now is certain to be off at the end of the season. Which, although he's obviously got 25 caps and he'll still be available, but naturally, especially going to France, does restrict availability quite a lot. And for the player himself, doesn't always want to be flying back and forth all the time. And then there's also, like, you are going to pick up an injury switching to a top 14 at some point, particularly in a Montpellier team. So, so he might fancy at some point, taking Beard back a little bit and seeing what we can do without him. Rowlands hasn't played properly regularly for Racing in the first part of the season. He's been a little bit part, so exactly how fit he is another question as well. And then Shun's
probably very in the case of he's not carrying a knock in that case.
Well, there is that, yeah. And then, yeah, how heavy or otherwise do you want to be against Fiji as well in that second row? Is it like balancing weight versus mobility in the Type 5 is always sort of, how much do you want to go toe-to-toe with Fiji at their own game, and how much do you want to try and impose your own set-piece game on them is the sort of balancing act. So do I think Beard and Rowlands for the experience? Probably yes, but there's definitely a world where he looks at Shunza and Thomas and just says, look, go with Beard probably and give us like 60 minutes of running as fast as you can, trying to keep up with the Fijian.
My one concern for that is, given how Wales are notoriously lacking in front football carriers. Will Rowlands gives us that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that, and is that something that you want from the start? Because then you can bring on players. Maybe you bring on players with a bit more impact. But I suppose with Dewi Lake, if we're starting Dewi Lake, he's used for that. Jack Morgan, I think we're all agree he's probably going to be starting 7. But we'll get onto that in a second before Carwyn questions, because he wants, has met all the English-based players in the team.
By the way, I'm certainly picking Jack Morgan. Let's not even debate that, right? Have I mentioned that his family comes from Bryn Aman and so does mine?
If only he went to Glantarfay.
Yeah, honestly, man, I don't think he'd get out of the house without me spying on him. But that's weird. Speaking of English based players, I think I picked Schunzer at 4. I think he's got enough credit in the bank. Off the summer, it was brilliant. Deserves a start. The one I wouldn't be surprised to see him at 6 if Wainwright's deemed not fit enough to start as well. That's the other one. I think if Wainwright is deemed not fit enough to start, I think Schunzer's the obvious option to go into 6. So then Wainwright drops to the bench, Plumtree playing in 8, where I think he's played his best rugby so far this season. Plumtree going to 8 where he's played the best rugby. I think, but I would start. I've convinced myself that Freddie Thomas is going to be on the bench somehow, and in my brain, therefore, Schunzer has to be in the 23. So I think it's Will Rowlands missing out for me, but that is the thing that doesn't stick right with me with saying that is that he was rested in the summer, and you don't rest a player to not play him. I'll stick with Beard and Schunzer, but I really don't know. Obviously, 100% would have started Ben Carter had he been fit, but we'll see who the options are.
All right, so should we nail it down? So looks like you're fairly confident Beard's going to start. Dan, I think it's Beard and Rowlands. I think it's Beard, Schunzer. Do you want? This is the Gatlin pick then.
Yeah, I think the Gatlin pick. I'm going to go for Beard and Rowlands, and then I think I'll go with Beard and Schunzer is what we'd like to see. Then I think that would be the balance I would go in that, because it's a tricky one actually to know what Gatlin's thinking, because he's changed the second row pairing quite a lot. Whereas under sort of his first spell, it was so consistent with the players he was picking.
I just think injuries have affected that, to be fair.
But just the type of player as well. Like he still had similar types of player available, and hasn't changed like for like very often. He has mixed it up quite a lot. Similar to the centres as well, where he hasn't really stuck with like for like there either. But I think second row is sort of second to centre pairing, in that it'll be interesting to see what he picks, because that'll give a real indication of how he wants them to play.
If Dav Jenks was fit, do you think he definitely starts? Do you think it is that straightforward with Dav Jenks? Because I really don't. I maybe it is under Gatlin that if Dav Jenks is fit, he starts now, but I don't know.
I think with Gatland he would start. Like I think he would be Beard and Dav Jenks. I think you look at his Torygraph column where he's talking about Wales players in the Lions, and he like specifically goes out of his way to name check Dav Jenkins there. And he was on, I can't remember what podcast it was I was listening to, but after the squad announcement, when he popped up on one of the podcasts, and he went out of his way again to name Dav Jenkins as a possible Lion. So I think he rates him like super highly. And I sort of get why, his ceiling is really high. like at the moment, there's definitely an argument about whether he starts right now, but certainly in terms of how good he could be, like he is definitely our future world class locked option. But yeah, I think Rowlands is is what Dav Jenkins like slightly will become, but better. So I think that's more like for like.
I think he's got potential to be a good combination of the two of them.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought was really the thing I think was a bit frustrating in the Six Nations was you had the three of them on rotation, and you always had the three aspects that you want from your second row,
Yeah, across 3
each
people.
one of them is maxed out on one of them, and then so you lose something. So like Beard is your set piece merchant, Will Rowland's your top carrier, Dav Jenkins, nuked Rux for fun. And if you took one of them off to swap with the other one, your carrying got better, but your lineup dropped, or Wales's ball retention went down, and you're just like, for fuck's sake. And then and that's when you got this idiotic people, and they are idiotic for suggesting this. And if you suggest it again, you are an idiot of putting Dav Jenkins to 6.
But yeah, I think Beard Rowlands and then Beard Shunza.
Yeah, first, all right, and then back row. For me, 6, 7, 8, I go Wainwright, Morgan, Plumtree, and I've had lots of pushback on this because everyone keeps pointing out to me, but Wainwright's proven to be our best 8, and I went, he's also proven to be our best 6. And I think Plumtree plays better as an 8 than a 6. I know it's numbers on jerseys and where you pack them at the end of the day on the scrum, but it still matters to me. So that's how I'd have it. And I think Gatland probably is the same, but maybe swaps the numbers around. But I think for me, it's those 3. The only caveat I would say is maybe you might maybe put a chaser in.
I think it's all on Wainwright. If he's fit enough to start, he starts at 8. I completely agree with you, Harley, though. I'd like to see Plumtree at 8. I think he's been brilliant. And yeah, I think the best praise I can say about Wainwright is I think he's slightly a more complete player at this moment in time than I know he is a more complete player than Plumtree at this moment in time. And I think if I was to ask him to do the dirty work, I'd feel more comfortable with him doing the dirty work at 6 than maybe Plumtree. It's nothing against Plumtree. He's a brilliant athlete and phenomenal what he does. But yeah, he's almost better suited in those wide channels. I wouldn't be surprised if Shunza or Freddie Thomas comes in against South Africa and you go for more like 2 plus a hybrid in the second row plus back row. And then but yeah, for this game there's something about playing Wainwright and Plumtree that at the moment I'm not convinced by, but I don't think they've had enough game time together for me not to think it could work, but at the same time, they seem very, very similar players. Just maybe Plumtree slightly better in the line out, and Wainwright's a bit just brilliant. So it's a difficult. It's not. He's been very good, but I don't know. I struggle. I will agree, but it's. I'll see how it goes. I think that one as a combination.
I think this is where you have to look at the pack as a whole, and this is why I think that it will be Rowlands that Gatland goes with, is because the ideal setup for your forward formation, to my mind, with I agree a Plumtree, Wainwright, whatever. What's the difference between 8 and 6-2? That old saying, and then Morgan back row. I think that's quite nicely balanced there. With you can use. I think you could have Plumtree and Wainwright on a flank each. They can touchline hog bit, and then you've got enough in the rest between Jack Morgan, Derry Lake, Will Rowlands, and Gareth Thomas to do your sort of hard carrying, dirty work through the middle. And then Henry Thomas and Adam Beard just plodding ruck to ruck essentially and securing ball. So if they. Because I do think Wales look a lot better when they've got a real athletic back row in the wide channel. So to have one on each flank would be massive, I think. And they're both players that, they're not going to slow the attack down. They've both got great hands, they've both got great feet. So I think that would look really nicely balanced. And then it would just be how you work your backs around them then. But if they can get that up and running, that's a potentially really dangerous attacking system for Wales.
I think you're losing a bit of.
Beard's a very good link player, which means you can use Grady a lot more off his wing and the likes of McLellan as momentum carriers as well. So that works as well.
But my one thing on it would be: are you not losing a little bit of Jack Morgan's ability in the wide channels if you're asking him just to plod up? To be honest, I think
he's so good in the tight. That's the thing.
He is,
He's
but
so
he's
good
also so
everywhere.
good on the wide.
Yeah, but we haven't got many people who are good in the tight. So Jack, sorry mate, you're doing that because you're fucking brilliant. It's a bit like saying, asking Wainwright to do the sixes role, even though he's brilliant at 8.
I think the other thing
he's so good at it.
the other thing I'd say for Jack in that sense is that he is mobile and has enough of an engine to actually do a bit of both as well. Like he can, if you use him on the outside of a sort of pod of 3 and then it goes inside, you could use him as an overload option on the outside then quite comfortably. I think whereas Wainwright and Plumtree don't quite cover the ground in the same way that Morgan does. I mean, they're both great athletes, but Morgan is just like his engine is undying. Essentially, it's unbelievable. So, yeah, I agree with that. But I think if he once you develop that system, if like this is asking a lot of Howley here, but if he's clever, then he can use Jack, and we're back to my new favorite phrase of roaming playmaker. Like, he can be the forwards version of that, where he sort of pops up as and where he's most dangerous at that point in the game.
I think if you use Jack in the tight, you have to use him as a pop inside option and a pop outside option, don't you, as well? Like, you have to have plays where you plan, like, World Cup, for instance, where you plan to use him in certain roles because he's such a threat. Like, I know I wax lyrical about him and do it as like they get a permanent job doing it, but like the guy is brilliant.
100%.
Whether inside or outside, so you just need to find a way of utilizing him to his best ability.
Yeah, I mean that's right. I mean, I think Wales haven't really deviated. As soon as they switched to the 1-3-2-2, they stuck with it near enough. So actually, you could still have all 3 back rowers out on the wide channels if you really want to, or you have him in a 2-pod where it's wide enough that he's going to have a bit of space to roam if it's gone, but also he's going to give you a good enough carry that having only the one forward coming in initially to break the breakdown's going to help.
Yeah,
you almost go with you almost go front row in that 3-pod and goes round. So I think we've all agreed. I think 6, 7, 8. All right, bit of argument over the 6, who's 6, who's 8, but I think we're going for that. I don't think there's any cause to put in it other than maybe Chunza, but because Chunza's in at second row for our we would like team.
Yeah, should we just be really nausy and say Gatland's probably going to pick Wainwright at 8 and Plumtree at 6, but we would pick Plumtree at 8 and Wainwright at 6.
You won't be able to read my notes because my handwriting's terrible, but basically that is what I've done in my little teams. I've just put a little arrow to swap the names around. Going on to the bench.
Centre approach.
Going on bench. So the bench front row for me, I'm thinking Elias. I'm going to go with Smith as Arati because I just think he would have called up literally any other loose head if he wasn't planning on playing him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Elias definitely. I think, and then could he go? Yeah, I think if we're picking Thomas in our one that we put him to start, then I struggle to see it not being Smith necessarily at this point. Yeah, I don't. Trying to think of like an argument against that, but I'm struggling to massively disagree. It is a shame that there's no Matthias and Griffin involved in that, then just because they are like good players.
I think the one obvious reason for Matthias is Gatland has picked Matthias consistently over Smith in the past.
But he's also consistently not brought him off the bench. There have been 2 occasions where he's rather had the starting loose head, whether it was Domachowski or Gareth Thomas, and just went no.
But Matthias has improved massively this season, and I agree with Dan on that. So I wouldn't be against Matthias. Like I say, I'd probably, if I was going to play Matthias over Smith, this might be the game. But yeah, I think that's a 6 of one, half a dozen of another. Really, those two. I'm happy either way. I'd like to see Griffin in the 23, but Azarati, as we mentioned, has done a bit of press, so I suspect he's in the 23.
Yeah. So I mean, you've already got Griff starting in our team you'd like to see. So
on the bench,
on the bench, or do you want to put Henry Thomas as impact?
No, but as on the bench, Griffin just doing all the job. Bit of a 9
Yeah.
cover as well.
Yeah, I think. So 1920 jersey. We'll decide. I'm going to just come out with that. I don't think Gatland's going to think about 6-2. He never really does it unless it's forced, and he's run out of backs. So 1920, probably looking at a second row / hybrid, and then an out and out back rower. Possibly.
You don't pick 6-2 against Fiji as well, do you? Like,
no, you don't know.
You might. It might happen against South Africa. It's not happening against Fiji.
Yeah. So what's he?
I'm convinced Freddie Thomas. By the way,
Yeah.
sorry.
Does he go? Maybe he doesn't pick Shunza for this one. Maybe he leaves Shunza out for this one and gets Thomas capped early. Oh, unless he's got a plan to get Thomas capped later in the window and he doesn't do it straight away. I don't know, but I get it's basically a shootout there between Thomas and Shunza for 19, and then Botham and Reffel for 20, I think, probably, and what Gatland's thinking, and probably what we'll have to think about as well. But although we've got Shunza starting, haven't we? So are we in team that we'd like to see? Do we have Thomas on the bench and then not pick Rowlands for this one and bring him back in another week potentially?
Well, we've got I'll leave you up for that one. But as I said, I mean, there is a world where you could have Thomas and Chunza as 19 and 20, and he looks to put one of them in the back row, one in the second row. Because you've got 3 players who can cover 8.
It leaves you massively exposed to 7.
You are losing a lot of 7 if you have to take Jack off. But
I think Gatland likes both of them. I think he does really like.
I think Gatland will pick both of them over Reffel because what he said he does. I don't think he wants the situation where both are playing again. So I
could get on board with that. I think Reffel is a player who's either starts or isn't involved just because of the sort of like the sort of speciality of what he does to a degree. So. And with obviously Morgan starting, so I think both of them at 20, and then I'd say I could put Thomas and for Gatland's team at 19. That he just wants to get him capped early doors. I don't think he selects him in the squad unless he's definitely capping him. So he may as well just do it in the first game and get it out of the way.
I'm kind of on the side of I don't by no means do I mean ill on any player by saying this, but training camps are notoriously injuries get picked up. Carter is a key example. So yeah, I think Gatland, you want to cap him early and make sure that he's capped rather than he possibly jumps ship to England in 6 months' time or a couple of months' time. So
to be fair, he's always come out and said he was Welsh, and it seems to be one of those situations where he only played England under 20s because of this weird thing that is allegedly unlocked these academy players' contracts. That if they get called by England under 20s, they have to.
They can. I think it is much easier though for England to turn ahead away from Wales in that sense. If you're already contracted at an English club, and obviously, like I suspect the English Rugby Union are offering more per game than the Welsh Rugby Union are. And so, there's the
25 grand match fees.
So, commercial elements as well around being an England player is easier to cash in off than being a Wales player. So, although he is, like he says, he is full on Welsh. There's been other players who've said they're full on Welsh, and the head has been turned quite quickly when the phone has been picked up from
I don't know who the Emmanuel Faber-Bosa.
I wouldn't even put him in that. I think he's slightly different to that, but there's been others down the years.
So I think we think Gatland's going to pick Freddie Thomas, and we would like. Are we going to say we want Rowlands off the bench, or we can keep Freddie Thomas there for us?
I'm happy to keep Thomas in ours as well and give Rowlands a weekend off.
Very good. I gotta say, it does sit. I completely agree with the talk on Reffel, but it does sit so badly with me to see a 23 Wales have got without Reffel, who in my opinion is so good. But yeah, I don't see where you put him in.
Would you like him to be our number 20? I mean, for me personally, it's both of them, but.
Nothing against both of them, but I'd almost want to give him that honorary spot as a sort of like, you are great, like as a tribute to him. But it probably means all. So
You are great, and
yeah,
I hope there's no injuries to the other back row, to the rest of the back row.
Such a good player, but I do agree. I think it's unlikely to see him in a match day 23 alongside Jack for a while. Yeah.
Right, so we stick with the signal for both of them. So, and we agreed that I think we're all. I know was shouted out when I said I doubt Gatland's going to do 6-2. I'm quite happy with 5-3 for Fiji. I think everyone's right. Cool. So number 21 is our replacement halfback. So as it was definitely Thomas for 9, are we going with Rodri or Ellis for our back? I think I've got a feeling he'll probably stick with Bevan just because I think he was very complimentary of him during the Australia tour.
It's close. It's probably closer this one than it maybe should be. But because Rodri started well in the season, and what are you looking for your 9 if you're coming on for Thomas is probably an element of control, and that Rodri's extra experience around that will definitely bring that. But also against Fiji, like a great kicking game is needed, and Bevan's definitely got that. He's got that over Rodri in terms of just sort of the distance he can get off that left boot and the potency of it. So yeah, maybe slightly lean towards Bevan, but I don't think it's a cut and dried one. That one I could it wouldn't surprise me if the team sheet popped up and Rodri was the backup scrum half.
I think Rodri's been the form scrum half in Wales. If you can imagine that in a New Zealand accent. But yeah, I think Bevan played really well over the summer, and it would seem odd if Bevan wasn't in the 23 after a very good summer, very good first 3 caps. I think he deserves to continue it, to be honest, and be in the 23.
So sticking with Bevan for both teams.
Yeah, I'm happy with that, but like I'm equally happy with Rodri as well. It's one of those ones where
I'll be honest with Gatland selections now. I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out Nicky Smith's named as the replacement scrum half.
He's called Kieran Hardy up in the week and not told anyone.
I think we alluded to it when we were talking about centres that we think Ben Gatland's probably going to pick Ben Thomas in the 22 jersey.
Yeah,
I think it's not much controversial. We've put him as 10 in our team, so who would we have instead? Is this an Anscombe?
Yeah.
And then in the Augustus 20...
Nothing against Costy. Just I've never seen a guy celebrate a win quite like he celebrated the win over Scarlett. Win over Cardiff. It did seem very much like it was a weight off his shoulders, and I think he really needs a spell of just do your own thing for a bit, enjoy it, just get back to enjoying rugby.
Yeah, and then the 23 jersey, I've got a feeling it'll be Blair Murray. Just again that versatility of a wing and fullback, and if absolutely needed, he could cover 10. If we had a horror show when both Ben and Anscombe got injured.
So Blair with an outside bet of Hathaway, something happens. Wouldn't stun me.
Rogers, Gatland seemed to quite like Tom Rogers as well.
Yeah, it could be any of those 3. I
think we're all agreeing though it's probably going to be a back 3 as opposed to a centre.
Yeah, I think so.
Gatland does have form for picking centres on the bench, I would say, in that 23 jersey a little bit. So
I think that was usually because he had a fullback. He had a 10 who could quite easily play fullback. So then you could have Sanjay move to the wing. So
he's still got that in Anscombe though, and Thomas could both play at fullback. I know it's not ideal, but the other thing I was thinking was
sorry.
The other thing I was thinking was that he could use Max on the wing, because it's not it wouldn't massively surprise me if he sees Max as his big hulking right winger in the end. But I could foresee a situation where Gatland picks Tompkins in the 23 jersey on Saturday, and just because he obviously seems to like Tompkins. He likes the control that he brings, and brings
about the same Tompkins.
Yeah, he does. He does seem
He's
to
a
like,
chaos monkey.
but
That's literally
it's
his
like
role.
I think I don't know. I feel like he's misunderstood a bit in that he looks erratic when he gets on the ball. But if you listen to anybody who plays with him, the thing they all talk about is he is the best communicator on the field, and that is what you need quite often in the final quarter of a game, is somebody just who's going to come on and talk everybody else through it. So I could foresee a situation where he uses Tompkins as the 23 option and then says, look, we've got enough cover with Grady can switch in and out of midfield and wing, and Llewellyn can switch in and out, and Thomas could go back, and Anscombe, before he had Poppadom groins, used to play at full back a little bit. And so it wouldn't totally surprise me, but the fair bet, I think, would be on Blair Murray being the 23 and him getting his debut and just seeing what he can do.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the thing. That I mean, the cynical reason for me is with Blair Murray is like, oh, he's we can cap him, great. Similar to the Freddie Thomas thing, really, for me. Carwyn, anything you want to
add? Yeah, I throughout that, I thought Dan was very close to calling Tompkins a player's player or a coach's player at one stage, both of which would have been interesting to. There's a lot. I do think Tompkins is a bit underrated, but at the same time, I don't think he'll be part of the 23. I do think it'll be Blair Murray. Hathaway's an outside bet, but he had an interesting game on the weekend. He scored a good try, forced a couple of offloads, and then had a yellow card, which I don't know how to really sum that game up. But I think Blair Murray is number one shot for that. Again, getting into the capping situation, you wouldn't mind capping it, would you?
Yeah, so good Blair Murray. Do we want it? Is he the player we want in our 23, or was Dan saying he wants Nick Tompkins?
No, I'm not saying I want him Tompkins, Nick Tompkins, whatever his name is. I just to put that out there. I wouldn't have even had him in the squad. So I would want Murray, as I think I've seen enough from him with Scarlets to say, yeah, get him involved and get him capped, and possibly putting some pressure on a couple of the incumbents.
All right, so just very quickly, shall we do, as time is running away from us, shall we do our predictions? Anyone?
I can't really. I don't know. It's so difficult to do a prediction without seeing the Wales team. I think at this point on recording on Wednesday night. Do I think Wales can win? Yes. Do I think Wales will win? Probably not.
You've been hanging around Nigel Walker again with those answers.
Yeah, no, I'm asking myself questions there. No. I don't know. Carwyn, give me an answer in an hour. Otherwise, I'm not putting you in any future things.
I think Jesus. I'm going to move swiftly past that one. My main thought is Wales will need, in my head, Wales need to score 30 points to win. So can Wales score 30 points? I think that's in my head as the debate. I think they could win by less.
How big is Eddie James's boot? And can he kick it accurately?
I'm going to go Wales win. I'm going to say Wales win 32, 25, 26, something like that. But I do think that 32, 26, because Fiji will deep. I was going to say Fiji
points by the minute.
I was going to say Fiji deal in tries, but they do this weird thing when they play against Wales, where they suddenly start kicking for goal, don't they? I think
they know it's always like by a couple of points, so actually having any points works.
Yeah, I do back Wales. They need to score a lot of points to win this game, and it's whether they've got enough cohesion in that attack, which is going to be pretty much regardless, apart from if they play Tompkins and Watkin in the centre. It's going to be a backline that haven't played with each other that much, probably. Especially at test level. So it's whether they can get enough cohesion in attack to score enough points, I think.
So yeah, I mean, for me, I think Wales by 3, but I think we'll see something very similar to the World Cup, where we sort of pull away, and then we're desperately trying not to lose. But in the last 20 minutes, as Fiji sort of going around page, and it'll basically be what breaks first, Fiji's attack or our defence. Right, Dan, you've had enough dithering now.
I think Wales have got a stronger bench than they did in the World Cup, though. I would say that.
I'm gonna say Wales by a bit of a bigger margin, by 10. A little bit, because cynically, I think that Fiji tend to struggle in autumn internationals because they get refereed out of games quite a lot as well. And Wales, as the home team, they can exert a bit of pressure on the referee with the crowd as well. I know it wasn't proper Fiji last weekend, but the discipline was quite poor anyway against Scotland. So I just think Wales will have a little bit of a helping hand, and that with a bit more experience and a little bit more quality back, particularly up front, it won't be pretty, but it'll get the job done.
Yeah, that's there are predictions, I think, fairly comfortably. So I think there's only one little bit of new thing left on the agenda. So it's some specific to the pod news. Sad news, some might say. Good news, others might say. I'm personally in the sad camp. So I mean, bit of good, bad news. Carwyn, do you want to explain the personally good news for you and why it's bad news for us?
Yeah, as probably mentioned, I was in a little bit of a limbo between jobs at the time, so I was freelancing for a while. Been kindly given an opportunity at another role at somewhere else, and it does just mean that I can't continue to be on the pod for quite obvious reasons. Yeah, it's a role at Dragons, so I'm very happy to take that role up. But yeah, obviously for obvious reasons, that would mean that I wouldn't be able to continue here. So yeah, having been an OG member of this pod, it's a shame to leave, but very capable hands with Harley and Dan, and I'm sure many people would be glad to hear my slightly occasionally negative ramblings off the pods. But yeah, thanks to everyone who's listening, and thanks to Lee and yourselves, boys, for making it such a pleasure, and to Aled as well when we started this pod a year and a bit ago. So yeah, thanks very much, and all the best.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. I mean, I don't thank you for as soon as when Aled left, you thrust me into the hosting chair for and all I want to do is sort of sit in the corner and make snide remarks. But you will be Miss Carwyn, because it's nice to have someone who makes me look like Mr. Positive. I'll let Dan have his 2 cents in a second, but I just want you to know that you are dead to us now. Dan.
Yeah, good luck. And I've just a list of things that Carwyn said that we've cut out of this pod. Number 1 said Ben Carter's the best second row in the world. Number 2, he said Rodney Parade is the best ground in the world. I've just things that he's definitely said that we've cut out. But no, it's I think it's great for the Dragons to pick up somebody as talented as Carwyn. Just really adds to the sort of Cardiff old boy flavour of that club now. So no, best of luck, mate, and maybe pop back in every now and again, sort of during the summer, to give your uncontroversial 2 cents on what Cardiff are up to.
That's good.
The next game's a Dragons game anyway, so you could be their representative on the pod if you wanted.
There was a moment where someone asked me if I could help out on a certain live page for that game, and I was like, I think I might be busy and a bit biased for that one, but you never know. Yeah, we'll see how it goes, but yeah, been a pleasure, lads.
That is all we're ready to discuss now. So thank you all for listening. Thank you, Dan, for joining me, and for the last time, thank you, Carwyn. Ta-ra.
Ta-ra.